Well, there was there's article that came out that really teed a lot of people out. And it was written by Ken Sweda, or Sweda?
There's a lot of circle jerking in that article, too.
Yeah.
A lot of the replies.
That's
Seems like
true.
a lot of people agree with him, but...
Oh, well, yeah, but those are guys that are, patting him on the back because they're obviously friends of the site. But
I'm just going to flat out say this before I even bring it up. I don't disagree with everything he says.
No, I was going to mention that too.
Some of the the way he brings it up.
No, I mean, I'll give you an example. So the name of the article is The Grand Conceit of American Soccer. And his whole point is that U.S. soccer, MLS, and the USSF, essentially Gulati and Garber, really have no interest, really, in making a successful American soccer model. They are actually, as he says, doing nothing to ensure their stated goals are met. And so he starts off the article, and it's not, you start and you're reading it, and you're like, okay, yeah, I mean, he really does understand what's going on with the U.S. youth soccer player development model. No one's really using it, or at least not everybody's using it. The model that Claudio Reyna came up with as the youth technical director. All right, so, and you start reading along, and he says, I have absolutely no faith that Gulati and the Fed have the means or the stomach to impose the youth development model on anybody. And he's right. And I agreed almost with the whole beginning of the article. And I think that's what you're saying you did too.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm not disagreeing with him on a lot, especially even the academy system. And there are some things that need to be changed and some things that are being changed. And I think a lot of, you mentioned that the developmental academy as being one of the things, and all the MLS academies. I mean, he talked about how like the DAs are still charging and they're not free. Well, I mean, there are more and more MLS academies that are going fully funded every year. You see, I mean, Real Salt Lake has their own fully funded academy down in Arizona.
Yep.
LA is fully funded. Chicago's fully funded. I'm pretty sure New York. And I'm pretty positive that FC Dallas is pretty much fully funded.
With the goal that they'll all eventually be fully funded.
Exactly.
I mean, but this shit doesn't happen overnight. Yeah.
Yeah. And then as far as the rest of the the developmental academy teams are concerned, like the ones that are not MLS affiliate, I'm sorry, find out where they can get the money.
Exactly.
To go fully funded, and they will go fully funded. The reason they charge is because, well, running a top-level youth development program in the U.S., not necessarily compared to the world, but in the U.S., running a full top-tier developmental program costs a lot of money.
That's
because
correct.
These coaches are not going to work for free.
That's correct. I mean, listen, we're going to have that challenge right here in Indianapolis with our NASL team. Yeah.
Here in Indianapolis, I mean, we're not even going to be looking to develop an academy team. We're going to be just working with the already existing academy clubs and academies around Indianapolis.
Yep.
Because it's a lot of money to do.
Yeah, it does.
And then not in the current setup in the United States, there's just no return on investment.
Nope, not the way things are set up right now. Right.
It's a very long-term goal.
Right.
It's not going to happen overnight. And I know the USSF made promises like, by 2018 we're going to win a World Cup, or MLS may say, in 10 years we're going to be competing with EPL.
Those. Yeah, I hate those promises.
Ridiculous goals that are not realistic.
Yeah.
Nobody should take those realistically.
We get to the part 2 of this article, right? MLS, the tail that wags the dog. And he introduces the idea that MLS, or U.S. soccer's artificially stunted quality. It's a perfect time to detail how MLS and Don Garber fit into this. They are the tail that is now wagging the U.S. dog. He says, when Garber admitted that there were too many ties in MLS, suddenly we saw the almost instantaneous formation of a couple super teams, namely the LA Galaxy and the New York Red Bulls, to shake things up. Can I ask you something here, Brett? Doesn't everybody play by the same rules? I mean, can't anybody have the same number of DPs now that the LA Galaxy? I don't understand this comment.
Yeah, yes and no. If you're looking at every team has the same number of available DPs. They can even sell their third DP if they want. Mm-hmm. But the big thing here is not everybody's going to have the same pull when it comes to larger names. I mean,
Sure.
Columbus stood zero chance, regardless of how much money they would flaunt, to pull in somebody like Henry or Beckham.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see Columbus or even Sporting Kansas City have the appeal to pull in somebody like that, but they can still go out there and find players that are going to contribute that will be designated players, and they've done that.
Well, Seattle, they've had the draw. Montreal, look at all the Italians they've got.
And you see some teams like Houston Dynamo who's managed to be a successful club without having to necessarily appeal to the designated player thing.
And then look at LA Galaxy. Sure, they have some DPs, but that's almost purely American team. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are more American players on that team that start every game than most other teams in the MLS. So
I agree. Yeah.
Then he goes on to say, "Call me a Euro snob if you must." Oh God, do I have to? And I did. But he said, "But I am not terribly interested in seeing largely soccer deficient college graduates fight for scraps in a league that often pays them less than they might earn with their college degrees." Well, that payment part might be true. But you know what? We've had a lot of successful college players, and how many of the college players that actually get drafted, Brett, ever play a game in MLS?
There'll be some players that will make the pitch. I mean, we see a lot of the Generation Adidas players actually find playing time on the field. Outside of that, it's really hit or miss, and a lot of them are waived either that year or following year. So
if you can't cut it, you're out.
You see the cream of the crop from the college merge in with the players who've been there, established, brought in from the rest of CONCACAF, even some of Europe and South America.
Yep.
I mean, and what cracked me up the most was he said that, MLS is fine with their subpar players, which is what you're alluding to here.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, subpar players like, Dempsey and Donovan and Howard, Bocanegra, Beasley, players who have all established their career starting here.
Yeah.
Even more recently, players like Holden and Shea or Cameron, even Bradley even started his career here. I mean, there are more players on the U.S. national team consistently called up that have either started their career or not necessarily ended. Let's start with started. The vast majority of players on the U.S. national team player pool have started their careers in MLS. Very few of them have actually started their career in Europe and actually made a name for themselves.
Well, most of them come home. I mean, and to get this quote exact, what he said is, MLS is doing just fine with the existing subpar American player, a few over-the-hill international stars, and an ever-increasing trunk full of mid-level South Americans. Which just... Okay, first, this over-the-hill thing, are they some of the guys that he must be talking about at the top of their games? No, but they're still so skilled, as he points out later in the article. They have so much skill, and because of their pedigree, as he puts it, they can still go over and play for Arsenal, as Thierry Henry did, and be successful and still show they've got it. And yet they're playing in this league. That's exactly the point he says it's not proving, but it does. That, yes, there are quality players in this league, and they're not all over the hill. They're just not as good as they used to be. That's not over the hill. I don't know. That's not my definition of over the hill. Over the hill is Muhammad Ali fighting Larry Holmes. That's over the hill.
Yeah. Over the hill would be Chicago bringing in Juan Chope.
I mean, nobody's sitting here saying that MLS is as good as the EPL or La Liga. The other one is him busting out, well, MLS doesn't have any stadiums. All their stadiums are between 20 and 25K. And, how can you build a league where you're going to be able to pay players a lot of money if you only have 25,000 seats? Well, does he realize?
He said it's equivalent to second or third division European teams.
Yeah, no, it's equivalent to a lot of first division teams, not only in La Liga. In fact, if you look at La Liga, half of the teams, almost half, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those teams are under or right around 30K and below. In fact,
I counted half the league is under the 25K mark.
Exactly.
France is League One.
Yeah.
They only have 4 teams that are above the 25K.
Well, they must really be a horrible league.
Yeah. I mean,
Serie A averages 23K a game. And the MLS is right around, what, 19K? 18,800 a game.
You know where most of those teams in Europe and where they make all their money? It's all TV rights.
Yep.
That's the bulk of it there, along with sponsorships as well. I mean, especially if you're some of the top teams.
Yep.
But the TV rights are massive in comparison to MLS, where they're non-existent.
Yeah. You know, I believe Simon Allen of Worldwide Soccer actually took this issue on as well, but I didn't listen to it yet because I just didn't want him to muddle my own thoughts on it. You know how when you listen to somebody else talk about something, you're like,
Yep.
all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, yeah, I want to bitch about that too. But, you know, the thing that probably pissed the people off the most who read this was the whole part about supporters. And, oh, man, does he rail on supporters? Let me read this because it's just unbelievable. Let's see. Okay, so they're bamboozled, he says. These folks suffer from the classic condition. They are in love with the idea of being in love. They love the idea that they have a local team in their sport, one whose scarf they can wear, one they can celebrate, cheer for, ring their hands over, enter fantasy league, have mock drafts about. It's more about the trappings, and it is about as artificial as it gets. So, God, I mean, if you're a supporter of one of these MLS teams, you're just basically a Nimrod. That's what he's saying.
You're not learned. You're not a learned soccer fan.
He is a learned soccer expert.
Not all of us can be avid armchair fans. I'm just saying.
I mean, this guy, he's the real thing, all right? And MLS has no interest in having real fans support Major League Soccer.
Clearly, the owners in Seattle are masterminds.
Yes.
To bamboozle all those stupid, ignorant folks out there.
Yeah.
I know I just said two things there, but those ignorant folks in Seattle who know nothing about soccer, they've managed to say, hey, come over here and watch this game.
I don't know why people in Sweden and Norway or anywhere else in Scandinavia, Denmark, I don't even know why people that live in those countries watch their domestic leagues either, because they are clearly inferior to La Liga, Serie A, the EPL. I don't know why people in France watch soccer, since they're actually kind of one step below those leagues and below the Bundesliga as far as overall quality goes. In fact, everyone in the world should stop watching soccer and only watch those four leagues. Everyone, Austria, shut down your soccer because you're just an inferior league. Stop watching Austrians. Stop watching the Austrian domestic league. It's worthless. There's low quality. This guy basically says, I don't watch MLS because the quality sucks and it's not up to par with La Liga, the EPL, and the Bundesliga. Great leagues, all. I watch them all. But you know what? That's just crapping on everybody else's league. I guess if you live in Belgium, you should stop watching Belgium soccer because it's completely inferior to the EPL. It's a joke. It's the stupidest comment I have ever read, and that's basically what he's telling us to do.
He did make a comment about how he knows this 16-year-old kid who went to Holland rather than playing for the developmental academy team. I applaud the kid if he was able to do that. Great for him.
Yeah.
And if people have the opportunity, we've made this argument before, if they have the opportunity and they want to make the trip over, if they're ready to make the trip over, say go for it. But not every kid has that advantage. They don't have that opportunity to go before they turn 18. And he had made a comment how he didn't the kid didn't want to go play for this developmental academy where his end goal would be to fight for a spot in an MLS team. Well, that's not the end goal for every, developmental academy kid. Once they turn 18, they have just as much opportunity to go abroad as anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So MLS is not the end goal. It's just an opportunity. And as we mentioned earlier, it's not a bad opportunity, seeing how the vast majority of players on our team, our national team, have started their careers in MLS. And been successful abroad as well.